So my name is Carolyn, and I am a compulsive eater. I definitely belong here. I am abstinent today on the gray sheet, and I'm so grateful for that. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from our beautiful gray sheet. I commit them to my sponsor. I eat my meals no matter what. I do not eat in between my meals no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life and gives me a much richer and fuller life. And I have been abstinent back to back since January 25th, 2001. So, my earliest memories are related to compulsive eating. When I was a very little girl, maybe 3 years old, I had my tonsils out, and they told me, "Oh, you'll be able to eat all you want of the frozen carbohydrate." So I was all excited about it. And then when I woke up in the hospital, I felt really sick and horrible and didn't want to eat any of it. And then when I got home, I said, "Well, what about that promise?" And they said, "Well, we meant it. You could do that in the hospital." So I felt so cruelly deprived that I spent the rest of my life working to make up for that horrible injustice that was perpetrated upon me. I was always obsessed with food, and I was, a chubby little girl, although not as much. I see the kids now and they are really big, some of them. And I think it's because they put the white crack in like all the products, even more so than in our day. Although my mother was this 50s housewife, so we didn't eat anything that came straight from the field or the farm. Everything was in a can or box or whatever. So it was adulterated with white crack, as I call it, or brown crack. Here's I'm old school picture of me when I'm like 2 years old, and you can see I'm a little chubby, and I'm clutching a can of carbohydrate that we don't eat. I don't know why, it's not a thing. And there's a little easy bake oven in the background. So I love that picture because it kind of encapsulates my little girl, chubby, already obsessed with food. So in my 20s, I discovered dieting for the first time, and that became a secondary addiction for me. The first couple times I dieted, it was, successful in that I lost weight, and they weren't even such crazy diets. They were fairly normal. But as time went by and life went on and my body became more and more recalcitrant, I had to do much more extreme diets till when my son was 5 or 6. So I was about not quite 30. I was about 30, early 30s. I went on the Optifast diet where you just mix up a powder. It's actually powdered crack with water, and you drink that 4 times a day, and it's 600 calories a day. I mean, total starvation diet, insane. But anybody will lose weight if you only eat 600 calories a day or drink six. You're going to lose weight. That's just a matter, a fact of life. But it was a horribly crazy, unhealthy thing to do. And I did it for 4 months. Although I had some times in there when I cheated. I went to work events where there were lavish buffets and I ate from them and stuff. And to this day, when I have like a gray sheet nightmare, a nightmare where I ate and it feels so real and I think I did it, it's partially because I had that experience. I mean, that was nothing like our beautiful, lovely gray sheet, but it was like there were some ways where it was like a cruel copy of gray sheet. I had a support group and I had to, we reported in on how we were doing and I had to confess to them when I ate, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I'm grateful I had that experience. It's like immunization that I had that experience of being on a program and cheating on the program without actually doing that in gray sheet. So 20 in the year at the end of the year 2000, I was ready to start my annual diet. Or no, in the beginning of the year 2000, a friend on the East Coast reached out to me, and she was on regular OA, and she said, I think you would really benefit from this. So she became my OA sponsor in a very loose way, which was just once a week I would call her and commit that I would not have white crack that week. And that was it. That was my abstinence. But what I noticed that was very powerful was I did maintain that abstinence. If I committed to her, I wasn't going to do it. I didn't do it because I didn't want this nice friend of mine to, I didn't want to be lying to her. I didn't want to be wasting her time. And that summer, I remember I went to Europe, and those 3 weeks I said, well, I'm not going to commit to you because I want to eat all the stuff they have in Europe. And that's the last time I have a picture of myself from, with my before picture when I was 220 something pounds, which is, about 100 pounds more than I currently weigh. And so she kept encouraging me to find a meeting. And that is how I eventually stumbled into Gray Sheet. At that time, our local Gray Sheet meeting was listed on the, oh, I forgot to start my own timer. So my timer's no good. So I will definitely need you, Jen. So our local Gray Sheet meeting was listed on the OA schedule, and I went to it just thinking it was regular OA and didn't know what Gray Sheet was. But at the end of the meeting, they told us what it was, and I was like, that's ridiculous. I am the world's greatest expert on diets, and I know nobody could do this ridiculous diet diet, of course, but I'll do it to kickstart my real diet. So, and fortunately for me, there were two old timers in that meeting, one of whom is still in my regular meeting, who even at that time she had, I think, 10 years. So now she has, decades. And not she, but the other oldish timer agreed, offered to sponsor me. I didn't have to ask for a sponsor, which was kind of huge for me. I was unwilling to sort of admit that I had a problem so I started doing it, and I did have some gifts right away. For me personally, this isn't everybody's experience. At the physical level, it worked really well. In all my years of dieting, the fashion in those days was that you could have brown crack, and so I would have the brown whole grain versions of everything, and never understood why, I reacted to that the same way as if I were just having the pure white crack. So getting rid of it was like a miracle right there, that I just wasn't having cravings. And also in that days, it was always the fashion to have, low protein and low fat, and Gray Sheet has more protein and more fat than all the diets I'd been on. So that all worked really well. And then we were a small community, but there was a weekly meeting, so I kept going back, and I met more women, and we went out to eat once to celebrate somebody's anniversary, and I saw how they, whipped out their Tupperwares, and nobody called the police on them, and they had me practice, saying to the waiter what I needed and stuff. So that was all really helpful, and pretty soon I started to take it a lot more seriously. However, I had a bunch of technical day ones in my first week. And then my first real day one was January 1st, 2001, 1101, which is a great date. But I messed that up because I took my will back in that first month, and I made an independent decision about how to do something, because I felt, because I'm so smart, that, my way was, better, more efficient, whatever. I did my own thing and didn't tell my sponsor. And then I had a little inkling of serenity, and it went away. I felt so much guilt and shame again. And then I stopped doing my own way, but it took me a few more days to tell her. And then she had me look in my book for the last time I had, done it my special way. And that became my new day one. So that's why I got the January 25th. I had I also had, early on, I had what for me at the time felt like a big no matter what. I had, excruciating pain in my jaw, like I couldn't chew my food. And even though we had a small community, they were there for me. I bookended my meals by calling before and after. People told me things like, put your raws in a blender so you can drink them. And after 3 or 4 days, I finally discovered, I'd been going to a chiropractor who said I had dislocated my jaw, but I finally went to a dentist who said I had a root canal. And I was like so grateful, because it was something that could be fixed. Also in my first 3 months, I went to what became the Malibu retreat, but that at that time was the Santa Monica Roundup. So that was really cool to just walk into this room of people from all over the country. I don't think people internationally were at that one, but and see that they all had their scales and their little tote bags, and I think we went out to dinner, and you could also tell who were the newcomers like me, because we were not regular sized people. I hear I'm sorry, it's something wrong with our electricity went out, and my phone, my clock reset itself with a thing. You could tell who were the newcomers because they were larger people, and you could tell who were the real Gray Sheeters because they were regular sized people. Somebody who does Gray Sheet is a normal sized person once they've been doing it for a while. So that was good learning. So then lots of fast forwarding. How many minutes do I have left, Jen? Just so I know.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay. So then, life went on. I in a year and a half into Gray Sheet, I met the man who later became my husband and the love of my life. And I'd been, looking pathetically for so many years for somebody, and, but I didn't love myself, so it's pretty hard to find love when you don't love yourself. And, I felt self-respect for the first time, really. And, there were different, little, what might seem like little things, but you guys know they're big things, when I had to stick up for myself in a restaurant or at a conference or whatever, on an airplane, when they gave me what they said was diet soda, and I realized it was, they were just many little things. But in the past, I would have just been like, oh, I'll just go along. Oh, I don't want to make trouble. But no, I was like, no, I am worth it. I need to know what's in this. I need to say, I can't eat this. I need to say, sorry, I'm just going to eat later, or whatever it was. So then after many years, I had a series of much larger no matter what's when I was in 2010, so 15 years ago. So I think I had 9 years of abstinence. My dad got pancreatic cancer and died within 6 months. And I was able to go and live with him and my mom in their pretty small apartment and help take care of him so he could fulfill his wish to die at home, which was very meaningful to me. And it was a way of making a living amends. I had tried, in working the steps to make like written amends to them for stuff. And it didn't really go over well, but this went over this. I mean, they didn't say it as amends, but other GreySheeters told me it was, I was able to give them the gift of myself. And I was only able to do that because I was abstinent. Otherwise, I would have just been face down in the food and like, don't bother me, or I just can't deal with it. Don't make me, I don't want to do it. And then the day before he died, I found out that I had stage 3 breast cancer. So almost immediately, rather than having the time to grieve, I launched into my treatment of which was, a couple of surgeries and 6 months of chemotherapy and then 6 weeks of daily radiation. And I did it all abstinently. I had a lot of help and support from other GreySheeters. I had 2 sponsors. I had my regular sponsor was on the East Coast, so I also got a West Coast sponsor because for nighttime things. And that temporary sponsor and I met with the oncology nutritionist at my cancer program, and we showed her the GreySheet, and she said, "This is a wonderful cancer fighting diet. You can eat this, but you'll never be able to eat it all." But in fact, I was generally able to eat it. I mean, there were some days when I had to eat the, GreySheet, what you eat when you're sick or whatever, commit it, but I was able to eat it. And I think that, foundation helped me what they call, they have a word for it, tolerate chemotherapy well, that I had that foundation of, a healthy diet and my commitment to it. The thing about these big no matter whats, in with the big no matter whats, I psych myself up like I have to do this. I have, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get through it abstinently. For me, the little no matter whats have actually been a bigger issue. Like when I do what I know I shouldn't do, but it seems more efficient. I weigh out that, there's an 8-ounce protein. So I weigh out some of that on a dish. And then on that same dish, I weigh out some of a 4-ounce protein and the scale goes off. And then there's no way to salvage that because you have 2 mixed proteins and you have to throw it out. Like that to me is the biggest no matter what, more than having cancer, because I'm crazy, because I'm like, it's inefficient. I'm wasting food. It's going to cost 57 cents if I throw it out. That's terrible. Like I'm willing to throw away my decades of abstinence over, 57 cents worth of food. But I'm crazy, I admit it. But those little things, and people call it's like the day after Thanksgiving syndrome. You can psych yourself up to get through Thanksgiving, and then the next day it's sort of like leftover. Just other time, times when the scale turns off. In all my abstinence, there have been 2 times when, with the permission or of a you know of a qualified GreySheeter, I had to weigh my food in once in a teacup and once in a Dixie cup, because one time I had a packed lunch. I was at a hospital for somebody else's medical event. I was halfway through my lunch and my liquid protein was totally spoiled. And I called somebody and there was a machine with the liquid protein, but it was the wrong amount. Anyway, she just had me measure it out in a Dixie cup. And, since she told me to, qualified GreySheeter told me to do it. So I did it. And the other time I was at a wedding and my scale died. And since then I have never gone out without 2 scales. But that time I was still a little dumb that I only had 1 scale. My scale died partway through the wedding. And, again, partway, and I was already weighing, little dish. Anyway, she had me measure out in, they had coffee cups on the table. So, I measured my vegetable in the coffee cup because I was halfway through, whatever it was. But, but those stand out in my mind because they were away from the GreySheet norm. But the thing is, I did not make independent decisions. I called somebody, which is, and picking up the phone is also, it's a big no matter what. I hate having to ask for help. I hate it. My poor brother who weighs 400 pounds and now he has cancer in addition to all these, his heart and diabetes and back issues. I think I see the 1 minute from his being in our disease, but then he also has cancer and he will not ask for help. Like I'm begging him to say, I'll come out, I'll cook for you, I'll do this. He's like, no, I don't want to ask for, he won't ask his friends for a ride home. He will not ask for help. I mean, so that, I feel like that's sort of linked to the disease in a way too. So I have had to I hate to have to ask for help, but I do. And you guys all help me by being abstinent too and being here and letting me share. So thank you so much. I'll keep coming back.